So as we know, today we celebrate the Feast of the Ascension, which was transferred from Thursday to Sunday. And in all the readings today, there's a kind of a common theme, as always. There's a number of them, but there's one in particular we're going to look at a little more closely. But first, a little background, for instance, on the first reading, the Acts of the Apostles. Now, the Acts of the Apostles, as we know, are compiled by St. Luke, the same Luke who put the gospel down on paper. And he makes very clear in the very beginning of the Acts of the Apostles why he's writing this second book. He says, because the first one, which is the gospel, contains everything that Jesus did and said up until and immediately following his resurrection. And that's where the gospels all stop. None of the gospels include the ascension. And so the ascension, he says, is included in this because he's writing down everything that happens after the resurrection up until the present time. And so the very beginning of the book basically contains the scene of the ascension, which again is 40 days after Jesus' resurrection comes the ascension. And so Luke is also an eyewitness to most of these events. We know he's an early disciple of Christ. He's probably there from the very beginning. So about 3 years he must have followed Christ. And Luke also writes with a very specific kind of a view in his gospel and in the Acts of the Apostles, because Luke is a very logical thinker. And so we know he's a trained physician. And in his gospel in particular, you find these little signs that show us that he can tell the difference between somebody who's sick and somebody who's demonically possessed. He makes that very clear. He, for instance, mentions epileptic fits. He talks about fevers and paralysis and things like that. He can differentiate. He's saying there's natural things going on, but also there's very evil things happening too. He makes it very clear. And so he does the same thing in the Acts of the Apostles. Luke doesn't add a lot of beautiful embellishments, so to speak. He writes very logically, very clearly to make it understood. And so this common theme we're going to look at today, running through all the readings today in particular, is the power of Christ as the Son of God. Divine and human natures join. You go right to the Acts of the Apostles at the beginning. It says that Jesus will return in the same way you have seen him going into heaven. He has the power to ascend into heaven, and he has the power also to return, and he will return because of that power that he possesses. And the angels themselves are looking up at him as well as he ascends into heaven. So it tells us that we're dealing with an authority, a power that is not just a temporary thing, but as the angels themselves said, will return. You go to St. Paul, to the Ephesians. St. Paul uses a lot of beautiful words. He talks about the surpassing greatness of his power. And according to the exercise of his great might, Christ is seated at the right hand in the heavens, far above every angel, not only in this age, but also in the one to come, and all things are put beneath his feet. He is the fullness of one who fills all things in every way. Then you go to the gospel, Matthew's gospel. This gospel takes place right after the resurrection of Jesus. Whoops. Everybody awake now? Every now and then, just got to make sure here. But takes place right after the resurrection of Jesus. They're going to Galilee, as Jesus told them. And what does Christ say? All power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. This is after his resurrection. He's making very clear they know with whom they are dealing now, the ultimate source and summit of authority, God. And this ties into something that happened well before this. You go back to the very beginning of Jesus' public life. So more or less 3 years before his crucifixion. And what's the first big thing after the miracle at Cana in Galilee that happens before Christ begins to teach? Does anybody remember? Take that as a maybe. It's okay. The temptation in the desert. That's what precedes Christ's public teaching and preaching. It's after that he begins to preach and teach publicly, the temptation in the desert. And this is important because this scene from today's gospel ties into that. What is one of the temptations the devil uses? He says he shows Christ all the kingdoms of the world so that I can give you all of these. The devil is saying, I have power over all things that are on the earth right now, that I can give you all of these kingdoms if you just worship me. The devil is, so to speak, flexing the power that he has been given since the fall of man, the power that sin gave him over the earth. And this ties into something else. First, Christ has to deal with that temptation, but then after he enters into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, he says something very interesting that ties into a parable he mentioned earlier. If you remember again, it's in the Gospel of Matthew in particular. Christ mentions a parable that most people don't understand even to this day, that he says, when a strong man guards his house, his possessions are safe. When one stronger than he comes along, he overcomes the strong man, takes the weapons on which he relied, and distributes the spoils. Christ is speaking of the situation of his entrance into this world. The devil's this strong man who thinks he guards everything, he possesses it all, he's got the greatest weapons. He's got the greatest weapon the world has ever seen: death. There's nothing more final and complete than that on this earth. You can torture people and all that, but you can only kill them once. The ultimate weapon is death, because that is removing the one thing so many people are blindly and weirdly attached to beyond all extremes, which is life. And it's good we have an attachment to it, but some people go overboard with this. And so death becomes a terrifying thing for them. So that's the weapon on which the strong man relies to keep his possessions safe. His possessions are this world. That's why he tells Jesus, I can give you all these things if you want them. They all belong to me. They're mine. So this happens about midway through Christ's public life. He tells him this parable. And then going back to the Gospel of John, after the entrance into Jerusalem, right before the Last Supper, Christ again says something that seems rather cryptic to his apostles, out of the blue. He says, now the ruler of this world has been cast out. Right before he's about to begin his passion. Now the ruler of this world has been cast out. He says, now the strong man has come who will overcome the one who thought he ruled. Now the rule of this world has been cast out, because it is no longer just a covenant. It is now God become man, who is about to make a sacrifice that will take away the one weapon on which he relied, the strong man, death. That's why after the resurrection, Christ emphasizes to his apostles, all power in heaven and on earth belongs to me. He doesn't deny there's evil things in the world. He doesn't deny bad things will happen, but he says the ultimate power and authority is his. It is not the devil's. The devil no longer runs the roost, so to speak. The strong man came, overpowered him, and took away the weapon on which he relied, which was the ability of death, to cause that kind of fear and exercise that kind of control over people. And so Christ's ascension is super important, because after this resurrection, he's showing us that death has not even power over him, and still, as the Son of God, with his human body, he can ascend into heaven. He says, this is the ultimate goal. After I've overcome death, this is what I want for you too, body and soul, to get to heaven. And it's important we let that sink in, because power is something the devil likes to use. I mean, power it can be a good thing, absolutely, but it also can be something we become very sick over. We all like power. No matter how much we want to say we don't, we like it. It's part of our human nature. We want to be in control of some things. If we're not, we feel like we're passed over or looked down upon, pushed to the side. Bleh. But power is something we desire, all of us. Even just if it's just little bits, we still want to have it. Why? Because it means I have control. That I'm in charge of something. Something has to bow to me. So power can be something that corrupts very quickly too. That's why the devil can use it, tries to use it as a temptation against Christ himself. I can give you all of these things on this earth. All you have to do is bow down to me. I can make you rich. I can make you famous. I can make you powerful. We talked about it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I don't remember. It was in the last month, let's say, about the lengths people are willing to go to achieve fame and popularity. That's a form of power, is what it is. And they'll sell their morals, whatever ones they had left. They'll sell their bodies, absolutely, like a piece of meat on display. They'll sell their souls. Well, why should I bother about doing what's right, good, being honest, all this kind of stuff? It doesn't matter. In order to achieve power. Because if they can influence, we call them influencers, right? Influence. They exercise influence. What does that influence do? It's meant to control what you do. To make you want to do what they're doing, to make you want to buy what they're selling, to make you want to act like them. That's a power, a real power. To have such an effect on people's lives that you want to imitate them even. It's a strong temptation, power. And again, it's power in itself is not a bad thing, but it can become very damaging because why? Power can convince us to latch on to the things of the here and the now only. And that's why the devil wins so often with that temptation. Did you ever notice? Maybe it's just me, I don't know. But when you're being tempted with something, the devil never says, I'll give you this later. It's always, you want this now. You need to do this now, right now. I can give this to you now. He never talks about later. He says, you let me or give me your later. I'll give you the now. I'll give you what you want now. Just give me whatever you had planned for later. I'll give you this. Notice how Christ, it's not that he's not concerned with the now. He's always more concerned with what the now is going to lead to, otherwise known as the later. Do not be afraid of the one that can kill the body. Be afraid of the one that can take the body and the soul and throw it into Gehenna, Christ says. Take up your cross and follow me, Christ says. He says the nows are going to be difficult for us often. That's just a fact. There's no hiding that. But he says, if you follow me now, I can guarantee you what? An eternity. You notice one little detail in Matthew's gospel, which kind of almost seems nonsensical. I don't know why he added it. Well, I do know, but how many apostles are there at the time of Jesus' resurrection? Does anybody remember? 11. Yes, thank you. Why? Because Judas has taken his own life. And Matthew's noted this beforehand. So why did he feel the need to say at the beginning of today's gospel, the 11 disciples went to Galilee? We know there's only 11 apostles left. Why you got to tell me this again? Matthew has a reason for doing that. He's pointing to the fact that of the 12, only 11 said no to the devil's bargain. One said yes. One said, yes, give me money, give me fame, give me power. And he is no longer there, what? To see the ultimate and unsurpassing power and glory of God. He made a bargain that removed him from the picture. So Matthew makes sure to remind us that only 11 ended up going to see Christ resurrected. That one made a bargain, made a deal, and now he's gone. You think about all the great empires of the world. Alexander the Great. Where's his empire today? Gone. The Ottoman Turk Empire. Where is it at today? Gone. The Roman Empire. Gone. The Communist Empire of Joseph Stalin and Vladimir Lenin, which ruled almost half of Europe. Gone. Earthly power does just that. It goes. It fades. It will die. And what could that power give them? Not one extra day on their lives did they get. Not one extra second did all that earthly power buy them. The only thing it bought them was a truckload of responsibility that they now have to answer to God for. And so while power can be good, it can never be the main motivating factor behind our decisions, is what it boils down to. Because it can become a lust for power very easily. And that's when the devil comes along. You want it now? Just give me your later. Or he did the same thing with Judas. And so on the day of the resurrection, only 11 went to see Christ and hear from his own mouth, all power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. And that's another thing about the difference between the power the devil offers us and the power that Christ tells us we can have. Number one, the devil's power is always limited by a time frame. He never promises us later. You notice that. Temptations never promise us an eternity of happiness. They never promise us long-term gladness. It's always momentary. It's always temporary. Christ says he can give us eternal life, eternal peace, eternal happiness. That's one thing. And there's one other thing the devil never says when he tempts us. But Christ says to those who believe in him. The devil said one thing to Judas, and Christ said one other thing to the 11. Remember when Judas betrayed Christ? It says the devil entered into him. The devil said, do what you want, get the power, get the recognition, get the money you deserve. And then when all was said and done, what did the devil say? There's no hope for you. You're alone now. And what does Christ say to those who choose him, not of those 11 that showed up? And behold, I am with you always. He's saying you'll never be alone if you choose to follow me.